All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now live here on Facebook. We are now live on Twitter, LinkedIn, also YouTube. You'll also hear us on the Northeast Streaming Sports Channel, also on Roku and Desmond Johnson's Tobacco Road Sports Radio tomorrow afternoon. And I'm with three of my guys here to talk all the latest happenings here in the world of sports. Plus, we will be joined by the brute force Brad Weiss, the legendary SJC Long Island Golden Eagle men's basketball great. So we'll wait to talk college basketball with him when he comes on. And three of my guys here with me right now is Billy McInerney, formerly of Elite Sports. A lot to talk with Billy on the NHL, and Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, and of course Chris Bazea of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, who also now have a website. Guys, happy Friday.
What's up?
Happy Friday.
A lot going on here in the world of sports. I mean, we got NFL news. We got baseball, of course. We'll hear from Rob Maraska here around the 10:30 or so hour, and we'll get the spring training update from Rob Maraska. I'm sure lots of New York Mets talk. I'm sure that'll dominate that. And March Madness and NBA and NHL, of course, with the Rangers, the Islanders. A lot to get into here. So I should almost open it up to you guys and be very democratic. And what would you guys like to talk about first?
Maybe the St. Peter's game real fast. We could.
You know what? I mean, we'll talk about it real quick because I'm sure the brute force will have something to get into with that. But again, I mean, one of those upsets, first ever 15 seed in NCAA history, and never seen that before in the men's basketball tournament. And St. Peter's again. And I was telling Justin this, and I'll go very quickly on St. Peter because I do want to get to some NHL. I actually saved this for the NHL trade deadline. I know we got everybody here before Brad. But I had a coach message me, and I won't say who the coach was, and he was talking to me about March Madness. And I said, well, okay, well, what's your thoughts on the tournament? And I brought up St. Peter's because I'm thinking, oh, he's going to say something about St. Peter's. They're going to pull the odds. He's like, no, don't worry about it. Purdue's going to smoke them by 20, by 30, by even 40, and next thing you know, I messaged the coach, and all of a sudden, the Peacocks have made history. So that's certainly there for in itself. And Justin, I know we were talking last night very quickly before we get into some NHL because I want to recap the trade deadline here. UNC, UCLA, I mean, what a game that's going to be.
Yeah, I thought that'd be the game of the night.
I don't know if anything's topping what we just saw.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the game of the night for the East region, but clearly, wow. I mean, I'm speechless after that St. Peter's game. I mean, just unbelievable.
You got to give them a lot of credit. They made a lot of big plays, were great defensively, were able to weather the different storms, and did a great job.
And you know what? And I know we'll get into it a little more in detail when Brad jumps on, but I just want to credit them for being such a great free throw shooting team because that makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
It really does.
Absolutely.
So,
listen, as you know, one of the things I talk about in college basketball, because I do want to get into the NHL trade deadline here shortly, is that every college basketball coach I've had on here throughout the 3+ years I'm doing it, the biggest thing I've noticed is free throws. And St. Peter's is arguably one of the best teams I've seen in big moments hit free throws. And their guys were able to hit shot after shot after shot and throughout these games here in the tournament. And that's why they are where they are. And it's arguably one of the greatest Cinderella stories in all of recent sports, and certainly Shaheen Holloway is going to, I'm almost certain to say, will be a coach elsewhere, especially after this performance and especially after they win on Sunday.
I think he will get the Seton Hall job.
I think that's pretty much sign the blank check and fill in all the dotted lines.
Yeah, especially with Willard officially introduced at Maryland. His tenure at Seton Hall comes to an end, and he starts a new chapter in the Big Ten. So I hate to talk about it like this because obviously they're still going. St. Peter's is still playing, but how could you not see Shaheen Holloway become the next Seton Hall?
Oh, listen, I mean, you think about he was arguably one of the better players in the last quarter century that they had, in a part of arguably the last great team that they had. I know Coach Willard did a decent job there, and they were in the mix for the NCAA tournament, but that team was loaded, and they went deep into the tournament, to say the least.
That was the last Seton Hall team, actually the last New Jersey school to reach the Sweet 16 prior to St. Peter's tonight.
Oh,
so Holloway's senior year was the last time Seton Hall reached the Sweet 16.
No question. And we'll definitely get into all that with the Brute Force Brad Weiss here in a little while. But I want to go into it very quickly with the NHL trade deadline because kind of interesting, a tale of different teams here. And obviously the first team I'll get to is Billy McInerney's New York Rangers. And good to be with you, Billy, once again. I'll get into the Islanders side of the story with Chris and maybe a Devil's thought or two. But I mean, Billy, New York Rangers, I feel like are legitimate Stanley Cup contenders. And I really think the Rangers did a really good job in addressing some of their concerns here in a number of different ways, maybe in depth with this team going into the postseason. Now that we've got pretty much, I want to say maybe about 13 to 14 games or so left for most teams in the season. So set the tables for us on your thoughts on the Rangers and the trade deadline. How do you think this team is going forward?
Yeah, I like their trade deadline a lot. Like you said, a lot of depth. No one who's really gonna be a drive the bus, so to speak. But they don't really need that when they have Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Adam Fox. They have like their core in place. Their depth has been a problem this year. So getting Andrew Kopp and Tyler Mott and Justin Braun, lengthening the lineup is such a big deal for the team. And then it's you get players, and what a few of the Athletic have been saying all along is and they're right. You can't waste the season Igor Shesterkin's having. This is one of the best all-time goalie seasons we've ever seen, and he's going to be a great goalie for a long time. Is he going to stay 94% of the shots every year? Probably not. That's not like normal. So certainly when you get in a season like that from him, you have to make the effort to build around them. They didn't give up any major pieces. I mean, a couple second-round picks. Morgan Barron is going to be an okay NHLer. A couple mid-round picks. Nothing. They definitely didn't tank the future. They didn't give them a first-round pick for Ben Chirot or anything, which I was terrified they were going to do. So I don't know if I'd say they're a favorite to win the cup necessarily, but when you have, the top end star that they do and a goalie that can steal any series he plays in, they've certainly got a shot. He turned puncher's chance a lot. That's what I say the Rangers have this year.
Let me ask you a follow-up question on the Rangers in comparison to, let's say, two teams in the Metropolitan Division that made a flurry of moves. And we're talking about, obviously, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Carolina Hurricanes. How do you think, Billy, the Rangers situated themselves compared to those two teams?
I think they did okay. I mean, Rickard Rakell was probably the big piece that moved into the division. But the Penguins, they don't really have the goaltending there. Evgeny Malkin's a huge injury question mark at this point in his career. Same with Chris Letang. There's a lot of injury risk there. I mean, every year we kind of write the Penguins off as this might be the year they finally miss the playoffs, and then they end up, getting into the playoffs anyway, which is the magic of having Sidney Crosby. But I don't know if I consider the Penguins a major threat. I mean, the Rangers just boat raced them, right before we got on the air. And the Hurricanes, I think, are maybe pound for pound the best team in the Metro, but goaltending is just a big question mark for me with them. Frederik Andersen's had a nice year, but he's had
Well, we know him and when he's with Toronto, he was definitely very suspect, to say the least.
Yeah, and he's had those seasons where it's just not – he's had stretches where he doesn't play well. If he falls into one of those stretches – and this has been the Hurricanes' problem for a number of years. They have the team, but they've never really had the goaltending. I think they traded away their best goalie this past year, and I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Alex Nedeljkovic, I think it's pronounced. He's with the Red Wings now. I don't know why they traded him. I thought he was a great goalie, but if Anderson holds up, the Hurricanes are the favorite to come out of the Metropolitan into conference finals. But if the goaltending lets them down, the Rangers, I think, can be right there to snatch that spot from them.
No, I promise I'll get to the Islanders and Devils side of the story with Chris and Justin first. I know they're looking at me like, why are you talking so much Rangers? And especially as somebody who is a longtime Islanders season ticket holder, I know it's weird, but I think, Billy, the Rangers' best move was Justin Braun. Tell me your thoughts on that.
I think it's up there. Certainly, it depends on who he replaces in the lineup, though. It'd be better if he was a lefty shot because he could pull Patrick Nemeth out, but certainly. He gives you a seventh, Libor Hayek and Jared Nordy are what they are. They're not good, but he gives you a seventh, NHL quality defenseman that it has. I'm going to disagree, though. I actually think the best move they made was bringing in Andrew Kopp for a few reasons. Number one, he can play anywhere on the lineup and be effective. He can ride on Panarin's wing and he can score well enough. He can play any forward position, and I don't want to look too far ahead, but I wonder Ryan Strome might well have played himself out of the Rangers' price range going forward. I wonder if they view Kopp now as a guy they sign and plug him in as a second line center. If Strome gets that like $7.5 million a year contract that the Rangers really can fit into their salary cap puzzle.
And obviously, very quickly, I think the two big fishes in the trade deadline that were moved, Billy, were Claude Giroux and Mark Giordano. Fair to say?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, Giroux went for way less than I would have expected, but he did have that no trade clause, so he pretty much, was only going to go to Florida. Certainly, I can't blame Philly for moving him. They're not doing anything.
They're not going anywhere, the Flyers. Listen, there's no reason to hold on to some of these players. No reason to at all.
Yeah, and I mean, Giordano, I think he's a good piece for Toronto. I think, he lengthens their defensive core. I mean, at this point, I think Toronto's in, they need to show it before you believe him.
You want to talk about teams that choke, and I know Justin and I were talking about Gonzaga last night. I mean, listen, the Maple Leafs make Gonzaga look like the 27 Yankees, all the dynasty runs they had, because the Maple Leafs, I mean, they just can't beat anybody if their life depended on it in the postseason. I mean, it's comical, and one of our big supporters is Erzin Krivska, and of course, Erzin is a huge Maple Leafs fan. He's been on the show in the past. But that franchise, it almost just feels sorry for them. But Chris, interesting, and I'll get to Justin in a second, but interesting on the Islanders was the Islanders were involved in moves, but two of the players were former Islanders, and that was Travis Hamonic and, of course, most notably Nick Leddy. I mean, it seems like the Islanders we talked about this with Billy, we talked about this with Justin, and Randy Dillon, who's an analyst on the station, talked about this with him in our group on Sportzwire Radio, but I guess this team is standing pat, thinking that it was an aberration this year because of COVID and the missed games and the crazy road schedule to start. And how'd you feel the Islanders did here in the trade deadline? What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping a couple of moves would have been made, but nothing came around. And I know Lou axed, what was it, Andy Green and
Cal Clutterbuck.
Well, yeah, Clutterbuck and Chara too.
Chara
wanted to get moved, but neither one of them did want to get moved. So they ended up just standing pat, like you said. And then maybe in the offseason, they got about, I think, $10 million, $11 million.
Yeah.
And then maybe you got to think, too, they might want to move the goalie, too. Not Sorokin, but
Varlamov, who's got 1 year left on the deal.
Yes, that would open up another $5 million, maybe. I don't know. Is that going to be worth it? So we'll see. I think it's going to be a busier offseason than it is at the trade deadline. Like you said, they're going to stick with these guys. They've been playing pretty good down the stretch here.
7-1-1 the last 9 games.
It's still going to take a lot to get to the playoffs. They're down by
13 points.
Yeah, and they got 3 games in hand, I think, right? So, and they do have 2 games against Washington. So maybe
you got to really realistically, 20 games, win like 17 of them.
Yeah. I mean, so, and you know what? At least make Washington sweat. I hope that they do that at least. Finish
I think that they will. I think the Islanders will definitely look to finish strong. And I'm going to ask you a question. It's a crazy question. Then I'll get to Justin and the brute force Brad Weiss, who's with us. And what I'm about to say is kind of crazy. And I was hearing this on some different Islander groups. And I think, Chris, you'll definitely know what I'm about to say is, I mean, what do you think happens long-term with this team and Barry Trotz as the head coach?
What do I think he's going to be around for a few more years. I think I don't know if I said it here, but I was talking to someone about it too.
One more year left on the contract.
Yeah. I personally, I think this team this year is showing their age because they've been in so many playoff games the last couple of years. Yeah. And I think it caught up to them, just like with the Rangers. Billy, you would know, remember at the end of that run that they had after the Cup, you could see they were just getting tired because they played so many playoff games.
Oh, it was 3. The Rangers had 3 conference finals appearances in 4 years plus the Stanley Cup.
And that's basically what we just did, with all these playoff games. And we're an older team to begin with, so I think it's just catching up.
I think our average age is like 31, almost like 31. With Chara, that's why it's 31.
Yeah, it went up a little more, and with Green. So yeah. I think with those 2 guys leaving, in the offseason, maybe they'll get a little bit younger and, get some of those prospects coming up, and maybe they'll sign a player or 2. And
They need more. They still need, I think, a little bit more offensive punch. I know Beauvillier's got the 10 points in 10 games. I know Nelson, we were talking about, is having a bang out year, and Lee's bounced back. But I just feel like they're missing something else.
And you know what? I think it was Lou who mentioned it during an interview a couple of days ago. He said, "I want to see our goal scorers step up because that's been one of our." Basically
Achilles heel. That's for a long time with the
Islanders. Right. So because we want to. So is he mentioning a guy like, say, Barzal to kind of step it up here at the end and get some firepower going? Because if not, maybe do you think that's a possibility of a big trade?
Well, I mean, Barzal to me, since obviously Trotz has been here, I've always felt offensively has been a different player. I know that weight we had just for 1 year. But I just feel like, I don't know, something Barzal in this system, and Trotz is the system guy, and you can point to Ovechkin, and certainly Backstrom and everybody else. But, I mean, there's still question marks with this team. But I get it. I mean, go one more year with this team. They also remind me a little bit of the Knicks in the 90s, had all those deep runs, and the Islanders aren't the quickest teams, and Justin, obviously, very quickly. I mean, we were kind of talking about this comically before we change gears here and get to the Brute Force Brad Weiss, of course. Some LI Brew Crew plugs we have as well, and of course an Anthony Finkel plug once again before we hear from Rob Maraska at about 10:30 or so. The Hamburglar, Andrew Hammond, is with the New Jersey Devils, but I don't think that's the big story here. I think the big story here is that it's going to be a big offseason for the New Jersey Devils, something tells me.
Yeah, you know what, with all the cap room that they have, and right now, I mean, with the contracts currently constructed, they have close to $10 million in cap space, and that's not even including the $9 million that comes off the books for PK Subban, essentially being a dead weight the last couple of years. I mean, he hasn't been great.
That's like one of those old Ranger moves they would make like in the late 90s and up until like around the lockout, where you get like those guys, you look at the back of their hockey card, like I'm thinking like Pavel Bure, Eric Lindros, like all those guys they would get. And then they would come and were like total disasters with the Rangers. I mean, that's what I'm thinking for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, look, it has to be a big offseason for the Devils. I mean, you look at the talent that they have. I mean, with Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, you have three solidified young star forwards who clearly could score. And the Devils, are a team that's middle of the pack. They're 15th or 16th in total goals scored, which, should keep you in playoff contention.
And for the last few years, compared to some Devils teams, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the Devils have been a lot better offensively. I mean, the growth of Hughes and Brett together has really been something enjoyable to watch. But, when you're in the bottom five in goals allowed, you've allowed the fifth most goals allowed, you're not going anywhere. That's why the Devils are still at the bottom of the standings. Goaltending is a clear issue. The last couple of years, we've seen how good Mackenzie Blackwood is. We've also seen Mackenzie Blackwood not being able to stay on the ice. There's always been some form of injury. So, it's time that the Devils figure out the goaltending situation, and then they still have the cap room. I think a star forward's incoming, via free agency, or maybe Fitzgerald swings a trade. Who knows? But there's a lot of wiggle room for the Devils. And there's also a lot of opportunity for this team to be within playoff contention next season.
Absolutely. I think that the Devils, there's some signs there. There's definitely some signs for the first time here in a while. And I want to formally introduce the Brute Force Brad Weiss. And I think he's kind of got something he's wearing right now that we're going to be plugging in a little while. That is, of course, our LI Brew Crew. We even got some big players that are coming in, some big-time college baseball players. We got some big – I was looking at this, the Brew Force, when you sent me the liner notes via Kyle Super. And, of course, shout out to Kyle Super and the LI Brew Crew. Everybody can follow them on Instagram. But we've got some talent coming in here. I mean, I don't know what you guys did. I don't know if you guys made a deal like Putin with the oil. I don't know what you did. Whatever you did something, because we have real players. It isn't like any more players we had to, almost really – BS on, but we'll get to that in a little while. But I've got to ask you to kick things off, and I know we'll bounce around here, different topics, but St. Peter's, I mean, what do you think? Everybody wants me to ask you that specifically. Everybody wants me to ask you that, Brad.
Oh, man. All I can say is what a story this has become. Yet another upset as a 15 seed beating Purdue tonight. And it's crazy because, before I just got here, I was at a local restaurant. Shout out to Rico's in Levittown. It's a really good pizzeria. That I was there. And
can I try Rico's in the next few months?
I think that's worth a try. It might be better than All American, I gotta say. So,
well, then you got me excited.
Really good pizza,
both in the same day.
All right. If it's on the Sunrise Highway to and from, I might as well try both.
It's on Hempstead Turnpike, close, but not
fair enough. We'll work on it.
But the reason why I mention it is because any given person, whether it's New York or New Jersey, when St. Peter's won, that whole place went crazy. Everybody was really excited. You could tell that there was a lot of bettors in there as well, betting on St. Peter's to win the game. As well as my friend, I'll give him a shout out, James Cronin, who won $550 from this win for St. Peter's. So he is a very happy man, amongst others who were in that restaurant. And listen, it was just awesome. I couldn't leave my chair. I'm like, I got to watch the rest of this game.
That's how I felt, Brad. That's exactly how I felt tonight.
And it was just unbelievable to see. But this team is just, and listen, you guys heard Shaheen Holloway, the coach, who is probably, he is an unbelievable coach. I mean, the way that he's gotten this team to play against some of the best teams in college basketball. But you heard him say a week ago that these guys are New Jersey and New York tough, and that they have what it means to be a New Yorker or a person from New Jersey. And you guys know I'm not fond of New Jersey. But what I will say is, ladies and gentlemen, okay, this team right here, St. Peter's from New Jersey, personifies what New York basketball is all about. Not the New York Knicks, okay? This is the team that we need to watch, and we need to see, and we need to believe that this is what New York basketball is. Rough Riders who are tough, who are willing to do whatever it takes to win, and that's what this St. Peter's team is. Absolutely unbelievable. I will say one thing, Tom Bryce. Would that dude, Evie, who's 7'4", come to my hook shot clinic? Because he couldn't make a damn hook shot to make his damn life. And he's 7'4".
There's a reason why. But there's a reason why, as much, even though he starts, Trayvon Williams gets more minutes.
It's bad.
It's just not as good.
It's bad. I mean, he's got the height. He's not. We talk about some guys at 7'4" being a little bit clumsy and maybe not fleet of foot, but this is a guy who can get up and down the court a little bit. He's got good post moves. He just couldn't finish. So ultimately, I thought that, and again, you got to give all the credit to St. Peter's. Their defense was unbelievable. Offensively, they executed and they made key free throws. I mean, the kid Ivy for Purdue is going to be a big-time pick this year in the draft. I mean, that shot he hit to cut the lead, and then I thought he was going to make that shot at the end there when they were down 3, and he brought it down the court, and they didn't step up on him. I thought he was going to step into that shot and make it, but that kid's an absolute stud. But in the end, it's a team sport, and some Purdue players played well, but that's not enough to beat a team. And that team,
some is not enough. And I want to interject very quickly because I want to give a shout out to my very, very dear friend, of course, Mr. Anthony J. Finkel, who we have a plug in here for in a few minutes, of course, with his great company, of course, DPH Property Service, which is on his logo. And Big Fig, you got to give me very quickly because we talk wrestling here, and I didn't get a chance to watch SmackDown because we're on the air. I mean, give me the main event real quick of SmackDown. If you can, if you're listening here and you're watching, which I know you are, give me a brief synopsis on SmackDown because my brother Brian was there, but he's not going to give us a report. He never would give us a report, but certainly if you are there, well, listen, what can I tell you? But if you want to give me a quick synopsis on SmackDown, Mr. Finkel, I would certainly be very, very happy about that here. But certainly St. Peter's definitely one for the ages here. And also we have a lot to talk about here in the world of Major League Baseball. We'll actually get into that here in a little while with Rob Maraska, our longest tenured analyst, who will pop in on the stream here for maybe about, 30, maybe 15, 20 minutes. We'll have a number of different things going on here, much, much more. And, of course, if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, do give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week here, 365 days a year, you can catch all of our content on sportnarium.com/player. I'll get back to college basketball here in a little while because I do want to talk about that also for Tobacco Road Sports Radio and Desmond Johnson, of course, Lyndon Mac McGrath. But I got to go to football very quickly because everybody likes to hear football. And I got a message from one of my friends who checked out one of our streams last week and said, man, everybody's talking about football. And I got to ask this question. I don't know how serious is it, but we love talking about it. And that's Tom Brady. I mean, is Tom Brady really now changing teams this time for the Miami Dolphins? I mean,
no.
Talk to me about that. Fill me in.
I don't think so because if you remember, I think it was a couple of weeks ago before he came back, before he announced his unretirement. Didn't Arian say, "Listen, we own his rights, and the only way we're getting rid of it is if they offer us 3 first-round picks or something"? So yeah, and you got to think about it too. A lot of guys re-signed recently with Tampa because of Brady's unretirement announcement. So he's not going anywhere. I mean, I don't believe that. Miami's all in with who they got. They got Tua, they got this, the new head coach and the new offense. So I don't see Brady going there at all.
Anybody else want to throw a thought at Tom Brady? Because everybody always likes to talk Tom Brady. Anybody else have a thought on that?
I agree with Chris. I never thought Brady to Miami was serious, but then before he went to Tampa Bay, maybe it was because apparently he was meeting with ownership on a yacht or something like that. It's unconfirmed that it was Brady, but it was believed to be Brady. But at this point, like Chris said, guys are re-signing with Tampa Bay because Brady's back. I mean, Leonard Fournette went to go visit the New England Patriots. He's like, "Nah, I'm good."
Boy, that would be ironic. Wouldn't that be ironic?
I think that's a better life. So,
for you, Billy, any thoughts on Tom Brady? Any thoughts on that? No, don't buy into that.
I don't think he's leaving Tampa. First of all, Bruce Arians already said they're not trading Brady away, so I think he played out this season in Tampa. Maybe after this season he looks around again, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's going to find a better situation for himself in Tampa right now, honestly.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Tampa's a more safer bet and a more stable environment. The roof was, I know that Aunt Laura, when Tom Brady's name gets mentioned, definitely listens. So I almost got to throw it out there. I mean, is there any validity to Tom Brady maybe going to the Miami Dolphins, or it's just all hearsay?
Tom, maybe I should try something new because I realize that every time I talk about Tom Brady, I'm wrong. So let me just take the other side. Yeah, he'll leave. Sure. All right. He'll leave. Maybe next year, go to a different team. Maybe he'll try something new. But you guys know, in all seriousness, I don't believe that. I think he's going to be in Tampa. He's going to finish in Tampa. Like everybody said already, it's 100% true. The guys, who are signing with Tampa are signing because he's there. So ultimately, he's going to be there. And I think, listen, Miami right now, they should just be happy enough that they have Tyreek Hill. They got that big contract that they're going to have to eat up for years to come. So I don't know if they can afford much else. But, listen, like I said, I've been wrong with Tom Brady before, and I'll see if I can do it again.
Absolutely. I got a few comments in here. We've got Anthony Finkel. John Cena has entered the chat. Well, speaking about that, Anthony Finkel, I'm sure you heard the news about Triple H announcing his retirement from in-ring competition. So speaking of that kind of makes sense here. Also joined in by a very good friend who's called up in the past. That is Mr. Joseph Gialombardo Bostrom. I'm going to get in so much trouble for saying it that way. But, of course, Joey Bostrom, one of my longtime friends, dear supporters, just puts in St. Peter's. Yeah, St. Peter's. That's pretty much the name of the game. And, Joey, I will continue to say it. My claim to fame to St. Peter's is actually I'm friends with the women's coach, Mark Mitchell. Now, the women's coach, I mean, nobody really cares too much for the women's team, although they did get to the MAC championship game last season. So I do want to make sure I recognize that. And ironically, I actually do live near St. Peter's Cemetery across the street. So that's my St. Peter's tie. Yeah, well, listen, my resting place isn't too far away, I guess. Hopefully I can get admitted in. Hopefully that's the name of the game here. But certainly St. Peter's will continue to be the topic throughout, I think, the next few days, and certainly in the sports world here. But I want to continue to go on to football real quick, because speaking of those Miami Dolphins, and kind of an interesting time here, kind of relates to the Kansas City Chiefs. And we'll get into more of that for sure. But Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins. I mean, what do you guys think of that arrangement there? I'll go with Chris because he's shaking his head a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Jet fans, myself, I'm sure Justin and Bruce Force was probably getting a little excited when we started getting the news that the Jets were, in talks to acquire him, but also Miami. And then it came down to Kansas City accepting both offers, but that was just for show because Tyreek Hill wanted to go to Miami and he ended up going to Miami, unfortunately. But I mean, it was great that we were in on the discussion and we had basically a better offer than Miami, when you go by the value with the draft picks and everything. But, in the end, he wanted to go to Miami. That was the simple, end of it. Joe Douglas did everything he possibly could to get him. And in the end, he wanted to go to Miami. So it is what it is. They have Tyreek Hill. They have Waddle, but they still have Tua, so they still got a little bit more to prove. So we'll see, And I think, in the end, the money was the same as well because he was going to get we were going to match the contract that he got from Miami. But at the end, Miami, unfortunately, or fortunately for them, they don't have the same state tax as New Jersey. So he was getting a little bit more down there. So a little bit more is, $10-15 million more. So,
and we don't have the luxury where we're a team that's winning regularly that we can just all of a sudden use that as a break here. And Anthony Finkel chimes in here. Who ? The Jets ? The disrespect. AFC rivalry renewed. Good point. Very good points there. I mean, Justin, I see you nodding, and I'm sure I'll get Billy and Brad's thoughts here in a second. But what do you make of that then? Tyreek Hill and this whole situation with him going to the Dolphins over this Jets.
Whatever, go enjoy Tua. I mean, Tua is hated down there so much. Jalen Waddle's requested a trade. He wants out of Miami.
Does he really?
Yeah, he does. He requested a trade. He wants to play with a better quarterback.
Well, he's a better quarterback. Then.
I don't know that we'll ever see Hill and Waddle as a duo. Unless Miami says no, we're not compensating you, we're keeping him. Well, because I don't know that Waddle quite has that leverage yet. He was only there for 1 year. So, look, does it make Miami better? Of course it does.
I don't even know if I can repeat what John Gonzalez is saying. All I'll say is, shout out as always to John Gonzalez. I don't know if there's some sort of
what is this?
Well, I'm going to find out here in a matter of weeks about that. So I don't know if I can agree, John, but I'm certainly happy to have you here. And of course, John does a phenomenal job with the Sports Authorities group, which has over 3,100 people now. And most of our supporters are a member of that group. So I will definitely plead the fifth on Mr. Gonzalez's comment because we are on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com Saturdays. So I definitely don't want to incriminate any of the gang here. But Billy, I mean, Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins, I mean, what do you make of that?
I was surprised that the Chiefs were trading him, but I guess, you can't pay everyone. Miami or New York, I mean, you're looking at, two teams that I think both have some question marks. Tua hasn't really shown he's the guy. Zach Wilson hasn't really shown he's the guy either. I still think that Wilson's going to be a good quarterback. I still think Tua's going to be an okay quarterback, but neither of them are ever going to come close to Mahomes' level of play, I don't think. Ultimately, I do think that there's still more pieces in Miami right now. I think the Jets are on the right path, but I think Miami's closer right now. And then you get...
Well, they finished the season winning 8 of 9, so there's definitely a lot of promise there.
You get no state income tax in Florida is certainly a major factor in that decision as well, I'm sure, So, overall, I mean, in a different offseason, this might shock me, but at this point, with everything else we've seen, it's like, okay, this happened, what's coming next, really?
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's just a matter of sports and such. And Joey Bostrom says, hey, well, Joey, is there something you'd like to ask us? I mean, obviously, we say hello back to you as well, but usually you have somebody you'd like to chime in here. But I'm going to get to the Brute Force in the meantime. I'm going to plead the fifth on the John Gonzalez comment here on the All-American Burger because I have to try the place in a few weeks. But Brad, what do you make of this whole situation? Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins, and it's certainly been an interesting offseason for the Dolphins, to say the least. And it's even more interesting now, I guess, with Tyreek Hill, a member of the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, well, first thing I'll say, John Gonzalez, if you're going to call something the Brute Burger, it better have meat, okay? So let's start with that, all right? It's not just bread, all right? It's got to have some meat on it, so it better not be no damn Brute Burger without meat. Well, that's number one, okay? Number two, with Tyreek Hill, okay? I'll be honest, and I think we all can be honest, between that hour or two slot, I think I was refreshing Twitter as many times as I have in a while. Just trying to see what was going on because – I mean, how could you not be like, oh, my God, a big wide receiver who actually might come to you and might play for you and make a difference? I mean, if you think about the Jets with Tyreek Hill, I mean, that becomes, a team where I could see, maybe Chris Pizzea's hopes of being a playoff team potentially happening with Tyreek Hill. I mean, the way that Tyreek Hill with his speed opens up the field and is able to get other receivers open, and his speed and quickness, and the way that you could put him in basically any spot and he'll make a play is dynamic. And the issue now becomes is that, listen, obviously we just saw the comment, and he made that comment about the Jets, Jets, who are they basically, and that was just uncalled for. And then he made this comment, which you guys mentioned, the legendary Tua Tagovailoa, basically calling Tua an accurate quarterback. I don't know which one he was talking about. Was he talking about Patrick Mahomes? Because last time I checked, Tua hasn't been very accurate at all in the NFL. So you better hope he's accurate, Tyreek Hill. But ultimately, in the end, Tyreek Hill is going to be, listen, he's going to be a good Miami Dolphin. He's going to help the team. I think, like you guys said, they have a good defense. Their offense is solid. It's all with Tua at this point. What is he going to do? If Tua has a good season, this Miami Dolphins team has a chance to be the third or even the second best team in this division. And to me, that has to now make me ask, because I got to ask you, Chris. I mean, I have to ask you where you are right now with your status on that comment you made last year. You thought this was going to be the year we make the playoffs. I mean, it keeps getting worse by the day.
To me, it's no matter what they do from now and even in the draft and even after the draft, it's all going to come down to the progress or the progression of Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Right? Because what they've done so far with that offense, they've improved the offensive line, which wasn't that bad last year. They were basically a middle of the pack, offensive line. Now you've added two really good tight ends to that offense, right? You re-signed Berrios. You're going to add another receiver in the draft at the very least, okay? The defense has to get better as well, right? You've added a corner. You've added a safety. You're going to add probably at least another edge in the draft. You got Lawson coming back. So it's all set up. I mean, listen, if they're not playing significant games by late December, there's a problem here. Okay.
And let's put it this way. As tough as the AFC looks, the AFC East is not all that great.
No.
I mean, it's not aside from Buffalo, who we know is going to be a pure Super Bowl contender next year. I don't think New England's all that good, and
they've done nothing this offseason.
And Miami, we're questioning Tua. Now, I will give him credit. Tua is an accurate quarterback, 68% completion percentage last year, but Tua doesn't have the arm strength.
Yeah, he can't throw more than 20 yards.
Yeah, right? And so basically, and a flick of the wrist, 75 yards for Patrick Mahomes. Right. It is.
We saw that in the Bills-Chiefs game. Basically,
it's night and day between Tua and Mahomes from an arm strength standpoint, and I think that's going to frustrate. It's going to frustrate Tyreek Hill because he wants to go downfield and be the vertical threat, and especially if Jalen Waddle wants out and he's gone, guess what? More attention on Tyreek Hill and an offense that's otherwise not all that great.
Yeah, they weren't really great. It was their defense that carried them in their run of beating inferior teams. And Sportswire Radio's own John Gonzalez here alluding to the Jets had a deal in place with Kansas City, but Miami was willing to give up a number one pick. Yeah, basically, according to Adam Schefter here, the Chiefs and Jets had a deal in place for Tyreek Hill. Jets would have gotten the 103rd pick along with Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs would have got the 35th, 38th, and the 69th round 69th draft picks in the second round and the third round, respectively, here. So, I mean, Jets had a good deal here. I mean, so they were in it. They were in the running here. And Billy, I think your meme was the best. I think you posted in a Sportzwire Radio group with the SpongeBob Sports and kind of keeping up with the 2022 NFL offseason. Certainly, I was speaking with a friend about this yesterday, and almost like the NFL has become like a year-round sport, like baseball has. It's almost like hot stove. It's like NFL hot stove talk now. I mean, people used to say, oh, baseball, you've got to talk baseball 24/7. But you know what? The NFL, I mean, you can do that. And certainly the Kansas City Chiefs replaced Tyreek Hill because they picked up a receiver in their own right for the Green Bay Packers. And certainly an interesting time for Aaron Rodgers because you've lost some weapons in your own right. And obviously we'll get into that here with the Chiefs signing Valdez-Scantling. I mean, give me your guys' thoughts on that move in terms of replacing Tyreek Hill.
I don't think they're done replacing him. I don't think one guy is going to replace Tyreek Hill. I think they're definitely going to draft a receiver. You know, the draft is very deep at wide receiver. You're probably going to see 10 going in the first 2 rounds. So, and they might draft 2 guys in that draft. And you know what? There's still some pretty good options in free agency right now at wide receiver. You know, Beckham is still out there. Landry is still out there. So they could definitely bring someone else in. I don't think they're done replacing him. And you just can't replace Tyreek Hill. I mean, this guy his speed is just unmatched. So you're not just going to replace him. So I think this team is going to look different, you know, the offense at least. But what you were saying before, you still got Mahomes, you know, you still got Andy Reid calling the plays. So you still got Kelsey. You still got a good running game. So it's still going to score points. Their big issue, I think, is going to be more on defense if we see Kansas City take a step back at all. Yeah. But I don't think they're done replacing them yet. I think there's still a couple more guys that they're going to bring in.
For you, Justin, give me your thoughts on that. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 3 years, $30 million with the Chiefs, could be up to $36 million. Again, piggybacking off Chris, give me your thoughts.
It's a good move. There is concerns of inconsistency, a little too much inconsistency in his time in Green Bay. Did have some big games, but also had some bagels where he got absolutely nothing. So it's an okay move. Obviously, there's no replacing Tyreek Hill. I wonder if Chris Olave, the Ohio State receiver, if he's going to make it that far, because now the Chiefs are picking back-to-back 29 and 30 late in the first round. And I wonder if a guy like Chris Olave makes it that far, because I think that would be a good play. It would be a very good player for that offense. I really do. I mean, it might be a biased opinion because I've been clamoring for the Jets to get Garrett Wilson at 10, but I would absolutely like to see Chris Olave in the Kansas City offense.
And John Gonzalez chimes in here. Tyreek Hill is a game changer, very hard to replace. Absolutely agree. I mean, there's no question that the Chiefs are going to certainly try. And Juju Smith-Schuster, I believe, is also part of that as well. So, yes. I mean, they certainly do a 2-for-1 there. I mean, certainly another interesting character, to say the least, one interesting character for another. And there is a few other quarterback news also related to the NFL, and I'll get to that. But, Billy, give me your thoughts here on the Chiefs here. And I guess they're kind of, in a nutshell, maybe remodeling the offense a little bit. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and we'll throw Juju Smith-Schuster in there. I mean, give me your thoughts on that.
It's obviously going to be a different offense. Like they said, you can't replace Hill with one player. Valdez-Scantling certainly gives them, the speed element that Hill gave them, but he's not nearly as efficient a receiver as Hill is. I think they have to take a receiver early. I think you're going to see Smith-Schuster get a lot of work over the middle. I think the offense is going to run heavily through Travis Kelce this year if he stays healthy. But yeah, it's going to be, and I'm interested because we saw this year that the Chiefs, I wouldn't say they struggled, but they could get bogged down at times if you took away the big plays from them. They struggle to really, have those 7, 8, 9 play drives down the field. So I wonder if that's going to be a problem for them coming into this next upcoming season where they don't have that, automatic double team on Tyreek Hill.
And John Gonzalez. I think, John, you came in a little late because we were speaking about this here, but obviously, by the way, I agree with Brute. Eddie from Purdue is a big stiff, 7'4" question mark in SMH. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of playful stuff from John Gonzalez, who, by the way, is a big man in his own right. He is actually a very big man. He's no short guy like a Rob Maraska will be when he calls up in here. But I'll get to some NFL news and transactions here very quickly before we transition to baseball in about 15 or so minutes. I mean, Brad, Chiefs kind of remaking this offense here. You've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster in exchange for Tyreek Hill, essentially. You like it?
Well, I don't like it if I'm a Chiefs fan. I mean, obviously they prefer to have Tyreek Hill. But, I think that a lot of, and I've spoken to a couple of guys that root for the Chiefs, and, they're not exactly upset. They obviously are disappointed, but they do understand the money side of this and how, it probably wasn't the right decision to go too far on Tyreek Hill. And listen, these guys are going to be, solid receivers. And if they do play a role in Eric Bieniemy's offense with Andy Reid, then, I think that they could do well with Patrick Mahomes throwing them the ball. But it's not going to be the same impact, obviously, as Tyreek Hill. Now, first off, let's just get this straight because, I have to say this. Let's start with this, okay? Let's see if Juju Smith-Schuster can stay off TikTok and instead focus on catching balls on the field, okay? Because clearly this is a guy who we haven't really heard much from the last couple of years. Has been on those John Gonzalez Steelers teams, okay, with Ben Roethlisberger. So we have to see, all right, what he's made of. I know that, he was 1 year very good and up-and-coming wide receiver. We haven't heard much from him, so I wouldn't put too much hope into him. The one guy I really would like to see more from this year, if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, is Mecole Hardman. I think that's going to be a big name to keep listening and watching out for. He needs to be a guy who steps up for them in a big way to fill that void. So I do think that Scantling's a good sign. I think he's a solid receiver. Juju Smith, we'll see, like I said, if he stays off the middle of the field TikTok videos, he might be decent. But ultimately, I think Hardman's the guy to look at. But I got to say one more thing. And the last thing I'm going to say is Aaron Rodgers, okay? Aaron Rodgers, you decided to stay in Green Bay. You decided, all right, to take all the money. And now you are left without your best receiver and your second best receiver, all right, in Devontae Adams and Valdez-Scantling. Now you got Lazard, all right. I don't know what else you got. Yes, like Chris said, you could get some free agents maybe in there. But ultimately, you better hope for the first time since 2001 or 2002 that the Green Bay Packers decide to go with the wide receiver in the first round because they think they need to finally find the wide receiver in the draft, the Green Bay Packers. And I just really shake my head that two receivers, right, that Aaron Rodgers did well with, that he loved, somehow both got away. So Aaron Rodgers right now does not look good, and I'm definitely concerned for the Green Bay Packers, even though they're in the NFC. I'm not talking about the division. We know the division stinks. John Gonzalez, Detroit Lions are in there. Minnesota, Chicago, they're going to win the division. But if we're talking about division wins with Rodgers.
It's about Super Bowl for Green Bay at this point. Listen, division, they've won all the divisions. Yeah. They've had the home field.
It's not about the divisions anymore. It's about the playoffs. And right now, if you look at the Green Bay Packers, I don't know what they're going to do in the playoffs. I'm really worried again. So
I wouldn't count on them. They've had the talent in prior years, and
you know what? Something to think about with Green Bay, right? They haven't moved Jordan Love yet, and you haven't heard anything about them moving him. So this might be a 1 year thing for Aaron Rodgers.
It might be.
Yeah, it could be. No, I mean it definitely could be.
And Brad, you mentioned Mecole Hardman for the Chiefs. A name I want to watch in Green Bay. Second-year receiver Amari Rodgers. You put up some real nice numbers at Clemson. Obviously didn't have too much of a role this year in the Packer offense. Was more on special teams. But I really think it's time Rodgers steps into the offense and shows what he was at Clemson. Because if he shows what he was at Clemson, then Aaron Rodgers all of a sudden has another big-time weapon.
Absolutely, no question about it. And John Gonzalez says, "Leave my Lions alone, Brew."
I might have to take a picture of this comment. He said that it's my Lions. He's confessing that this is his team. He's confessing that this is his team. So, John Gonzalez, you're on the record now. I've seen this comment.
You're stuck with them.
You save it on your phone. Make sure you got enough gigabytes. And there was something that John Gonzalez did previously mention, which was what I was about to mention next here. And I know John's got another comment, but I want to flash back on the screen here. Matt Ryan going to the Indianapolis Colts. And I think that's a very, very good comment by John Gonzalez, which was my next thought here in the NFL. And what do you guys make of that? Very, very intriguing move. Obviously, a lot of money there with Matt Ryan. I mean, Matt Ryan, is he an upgrade over Carson Wentz? I mean, I'll go with Billy first on it, then I'll work my way around the other way. I mean, what do you make of Carson Wentz now leaving, and now we've got Matt Ryan coming in here with the Indianapolis Colts?
Yeah, I do think it's an upgrade. I think Wentz is just prone to too many, mind-boggling errors, really. Whereas I think Matt Ryan is a little more steady. I mean, remember, this guy was an MVP at one point. I mean, Wentz was in the conversation, but Ryan won an MVP award at one point. The Falcons last years haven't really had much around him. This past year was kind of a struggle for them, but I do think he's a good fit. I think I'm a little concerned about their receiving group there, but certainly I think they've got the offensive line around him that the Falcons just didn't. And I do think he's an upgrade of Carson Wentz. Obviously, you got like 5 years. The plan would have been Andrew Luck playing for them right now. That's clearly not going to happen. So I do think Matt Ryan is probably the best quarterback they've had since Wentz retired. Since Luck retired. Factoring that Phil Rivers was at the end of the line when he played for the Colts. So I think it's an upgrade. Certainly, they didn't give up much for him. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes. I mean, I just worry about the AFC maybe being too much for them.
Yeah, interesting, intriguing move here. Obviously, Matt Ryan looks like he'll be ending his career elsewhere. I mean, Justin, Matt Ryan, Indianapolis Colts, what do you make of this arrangement?
Oh, I love this move. And, I feel incredibly bad for Frank Reich. I mean, 5 years, 5 different quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And finally, it seems like there's some stability. Like, you expect Matt Ryan to be there for multiple seasons, to finish up his career. And, look, like Billy said, the talent, wore thin in Atlanta. And, between Julio Jones being injury prone over the last couple of years and then being shipped off to Tennessee, the whole Calvin Ridley situation where he really wasn't around a lot last year. You didn't get much production out of Russell Gage, and even now he signed with Tampa Bay, so he's not going to be on Atlanta this year. And there's good weapons in Indianapolis. Michael Pittman Jr. You got the tight ends, Jonathan Taylor, obviously. It's a good situation because Indianapolis is in a situation where they can win the AFC South. Tennessee's not all that great. I mean, we saw Ryan Tannehill throw up all over himself in the postseason, even though they were the number 1 seed.
I mean, how many sacks did the Titans have in that game? And yet
they had 9 sacks. Their defense was terrific, but I don't know going forward how they could just hold up with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So the AFC South is a winnable division for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, granted, it's going to be a tough it's a tough conference, but Indianapolis got a lot better with Matt Ryan. I will say that.
And I want to get to a comment real quick before I get to Chris and the Brute Force, and of course Ron Laird. Again, Ron Laird always with us each and every week. I want to give a huge shout out to Ron Laird and all the support he's given us, especially over the years, going back to the old Sports Report days. And Ron Laird says, "Do you all think Julio Jones has anything left?" Interesting. That's an interesting topic.
I'd say no, but I still potentially expect him to end up in Indianapolis, and he'll reunite with Matt Ryan.
Anybody else have a thought or two on that?
Billy, Brad? That makes a lot of sense.
And John Gonzalez, very quickly on a follow-up on Matt Ryan, he says, Matty Ice got a raw deal in Atlanta, and for the Falcons to replace him with Marcus Mariota makes no sense. Anybody want to take a dig on that? Chris, go ahead, jump in.
Well, I'm just saying, with Matt Ryan, the reason why he got traded was because they were in heavy talks to acquire Deshaun Watson, right?
Yep.
So when that thing went south, or when it went north to Cleveland, they were kind of like, oh, like how do you go back and say, welcome back, Matt Ryan? That was just us talking. That meant nothing. We weren't trying to replace you as a starter, So he probably felt really pissed off, and he probably said, listen, get me the hell out of here. I want out. If you're going to disrespect me, I've been here my whole career, and now you're going to, want to bring in a guy like Deshaun Watson with all of his off the field issues, So I think him getting traded to Indy was just the aftermath of not getting Deshaun Watson. So whoever they brought in, who was out there, was going to be a step down for Matt Ryan anyway. There was no former MVPs out there, right? Like you said, Jimmy G is still out there. Maybe now you could get
Baker Mayfield. John Gonzalez pointed out.
Yeah, do you really? I don't know. Is that much better?
I don't know that anybody wants Baker Mayfield, though.
No, he's probably going to end up getting cut by Cleveland because they can't have him as their backup either. So
is Josh Johnson out there?
No, I think he signed actually.
No, he did sign. He signed with.
Did he resign with Baltimore?
No, he did. You're right. He signed with somebody.
Yes. No, but
I'll have to check.
Real quick,
what do I think? You know what Josh Johnson reminds me of? And Chris will definitely appreciate this because obviously with the talking rivals in baseball. You remember Mike Morgan, Chris? How like Mike Morgan changed teams like every year? That's Josh Johnson.
Yeah, he just keeps on going. Like he's just going to keep lasting no matter where he goes. I mean,
oh my God,
he's a survivor.
real quick on a Baker Mayfield prediction.
Yeah, go ahead, jump in there. We'll get before I get to Brad.
I think he has to. I think he does get released, and I think he has to settle for a backup job. I think he signs with the Buccaneers.
You know what my guess is going to be?
What?
Pittsburgh.
Interesting. That's an interesting one.
Because they only got Trubisky, so it's not like they have
but I think they'll keep Mason Rudolph on the roster, and then that they're gonna draft a guy. Like I'm hearing that Tomlin is in love with Malik Willis,
right?
The kid from Liberty. So I don't see Pittsburgh as an option.
They got Trask last year. What's the? Do they think he's going to be the future starter in another year? Or?
I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so. But...
If you've ever watched Kyle Trask play, I think you'd realize he's not going to be that good.
And Mike Lennon is available, according to John Gonzalez.
Yeah, I know.
I was trying to forget that. I think Billy's looking and giving a nod also here.
He's going to be available for a long time, I think.
He might be listening. Listen, Brad. Do we have like some Sandlot leagues in Long Island and Plainview that we could find maybe Mike Lennon on?
Sure. I'm sure there's a flag football league out there.
That was kind of a running joke with Josh Johnson. But, I mean, the Brew Force, Matt Ryan, a member of the Colts here. I mean, what do you make of this arrangement here? I mean, have the Colts improved? Have they upgraded? I mean, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go on the record and say this, Tom Bryce. I think that this for the Colts was a significant upgrade. I will repeat, this was a significant upgrade from Carson Wentz, all right? When you talk about Matt Ryan, I think he does get some unfair shade because, listen, and I've said it, I've said it for years, Tom Bryce, he played for the dumbest team in the NFL, okay? And right now they're proving it over and over again, okay, that they're just dumb. And they're just – I could say other words. I'm not going to do it, okay? But ultimately, the Atlanta Falcons, okay, have been a disaster, okay? We're all people in Atlanta. Go watch Trae Young cross up the Knicks and go watch the Atlanta Braves. Don't watch the Falcons. They're an embarrassment. They're not good, and they basically ruined Matt Ryan, in my opinion, and he's done nothing wrong. He's still been a serviceable quarterback. He's still a guy who I think a lot of other teams can win with, and one of them is the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm happy for him. But ultimately, like you guys said, he basically was shipped out because they talked with Deshaun Watson, and on top of that, you ship him out. And what do you get for him? A third-round pick? You basically get nothing for him. So it's just a bad look for the Falcons. I don't know what their direction is. We talk about direction with teams. They have absolutely none. But the Colts ultimately, I agree with Justin Gianelli. I think that this is a team I think that should be one of the favorite. I think the favorite in that division right now. Tennessee's got Ryan Tannehill. What has he shown us? Okay? What has he shown us? You know what he's shown us? He's shown us he can do better without Adam Gase. That's what he's shown. Okay. Besides that, he hasn't shown us that he's an elite quarterback, that he can get it done when it matters. Okay. Listen, Derrick Henry does a lot to help Ryan Tannehill. Okay. He distracts all right, a lot of players. So give Henry more credit than Tannehill, right, for their success. But ultimately, I think the Colts with a quarterback like Matt Ryan ultimately get much better. Jonathan Taylor's still there. I mean, that duo with running and throwing, and then like, Justin said, their weapons like Pittman, T.Y. Hilton, amongst others. Campbell is another wide receiver I remember from last season, wasn't too bad. So I like a lot of what they have. And a guy like Matt Ryan is more than serviceable. He can make the throws. He can make the plays. He was in a Super Bowl not too long ago. And yes, we know.
Hey, what? If you look at his career, and thanks to the crack staff for giving it to us, I was actually surprised that even the last few years, his numbers still held up. I'm looking at it here. 408 completions, 407 in 2019 and 20. Actually led the NFL. I mean, completion percentage pretty much has been consistent right around about 67, 66% since 2012. 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 26 and 11, 26 and 14. I mean, this is still a pretty good quarterback. And I heard the comparison, and thanks to Frank Terzio's comment here, let's go Jets. I mean, you kind of missed our Jet rant there, Frank, a few minutes ago. We were talking about the whole Tyreek Hill situation. But Sal Licata made this comment a few days ago. And, of course, Sal Licata is a noted Atlanta Falcons fan. Almost he had made the comparison what the Falcons did with Matt Ryan was kind of similar with the Knicks and Patrick Ewing, how they kind of let him go by the wayside a little bit, was still a good player, and it was kind of a weird, obviously, Ewing's career was pretty much over after he left the Knicks, but in terms of there was never really an appreciation for Matt Ryan and Patrick Ewing when he was a Knick, and I think that's what we're going to look here, maybe 5-6 years down the road, when you're a Falcons fan and you look at the run that Matt Ryan had. I mean, even for his career, it's 120 and 102. So that means,
can I add
absolutely jump in there.
Brute Force said that they're the dumbest team around. Here's another. Go back to last year's draft, right? They were in position to draft either Justin Fields or Mac Jones, right? And what do? They end up drafting Kyle Pitts. I love Kyle Pitts as a player. I think he's going to be really special in the league. I think he's going to be one of the best tight ends in the league. But you don't draft a tight end in that position. You got a chance to draft your future quarterback. You could have drafted one of those guys and had him behind Matt Ryan for a year and then ready to go this year if you were going to trade Matt Ryan.
And now we're in a draft class that is significantly weaker.
Right.
We're in a draft class that's significantly weaker. Like Brad said, this was poor treatment of, I think, widely considered the greatest quarterback in Falcons franchise history.
I think it's no question. I mean, I just read it off to you: 120 and 102. Who had that in Falcons history before that? I mean, nobody. Michael Vick, Chris Chandler, no way. I mean,
Bartkowski.
2 years.
The Falcons are not a franchise with much success. They've only been to one other Super Bowl. Aside from the one Matt Ryan took
98. That was Chris Chandler was the quarterback.
Chris Chandler was the quarterback. He was not a franchise quarterback.
No.
So,
no way.
It was poor treatment to the end of somebody who
very similar to
legend in Atlanta.
To Patrick.
Good luck with Marcus Mariota. That's all I gotta say. Good luck.
And certainly we have a comment from somebody we know obviously very well, of course. He is a very forceful man. Of course, we are talking about the legendary Super Force here, Mr. Joel Weiss, of course, who is a pretty successful athlete in his own right. And I want to read his comment off here before I get to Rob Moroska, who's chomping at the bit. We know Rob Moroska's waiting here. And he said, Jets will be better, but division is good. Yeah, I you know what? Miami won 8 of their last 9 games. So I'm going to still assume that Miami has the momentum, even with all the off-season issues there. And he also chimes in here, wait, Knicks win without Randall again. Yeah, I almost feel like that the Knicks, for whatever reason, that they're doing that usual last-minute, late-season surge, and I'm certainly sure that we'll get to that as well for sure, but we'll get to baseball here very shortly, as I'm going to bring on Rob Moroska here in about a minute or two, but I want to get to a few plugs here first, and I want to get to the first plug here. That is, of course, for our beloved LI Brew Crew. The boys are going to take the field here this coming Sunday, and the Brew Force was out there practicing. He was out there getting some batting practice there in the cage, and I'm sure Mr. Weiss was out there as well. I'm sure at least was observing, because he's got a pretty good swing in his own right, of course. A legendary Alon baseball player, also played a little bit professionally, and the season's kicking off here Sunday, and boy, what terrible weather to kick things off here this Sunday. It's going to be very, very horrific weather, but we've got some new players that I want to make sure I plug in. And obviously the first one here is John LaRocca. I mean, John LaRocca, I mean, here's a guy that's been a really standout D1 baseball player, played at Stony Brook. He played at Monmouth. I mean, really, really, really excited about this guy. This guy's a legit 300-plus hitter in college at the D1 level. That is not easy to do. So I want to make sure we recognize John LaRocca as a new addition. Then we've got also Ron Melo Campo, who I know from Queens College, who played out there in the East Coast Conference, of course, which is the same conference, of course, which is the Staten Island Dolphins of CSI, of course, by my neck of the woods here. And John Gonzalez, we'll get to that here in a second. And Ron Melo Campo, obviously, is a guy. He's a solid hitter. He's played very well. Yeah, I can't repeat what he's saying here, and because Rob Maraska is probably listening to this, so I want to make sure I be as diplomatic as possible. But Ron Melo Campo, very excited about him coming to the team. Bobby Lewis, I mean, here's another guy that here's a guy that I've seen him pitch a little bit. He's from the Shemitz softball team. I mean, did I get that right, Brad? The Shemitz softball team?
You did, yeah.
He's another guy. I mean, I've seen him around before. Obviously, a product of some great baseball teams, especially from Quinnipiac. And of course, Quinnipiac, everybody knows if you're a political guru or an operative, because Quinnipiac always does the polling. So obviously, Quinnipiac has also a very strong baseball program. And Robert Lewis, a big guy, he's from Seaford. I mean, Seaford is obviously not too far from everybody's neck of the woods here in Long Island and Nassau and Suffolk counties. And this guy is going to be a big pickup here. I think he's right up there as well. And the other guy we've got here is Cole Massler. And this is a guy, let me tell you something. Of all the guys we've got here on this team, Cole Massler might be one of the guys that might be the X factor. He might be the wild card in this team. I mean, listen, we read off some big names that we just talked about just now. We talked about Bobby Lewis, Ron Melo Campo. We talked about John LaRocca. But this guy, Cole Massler, all I'm saying is stay tuned for that. And, of course, if you like what you hear from the LI Brew Crew, you can definitely give the boys a like and follow on Instagram at LI Brew Crew. So I'm going to make sure that I recognize the team also Sunday. And where are we playing Sunday, Brad? Before I get to Rob Maraska and Anthony Finkel plug in, where are we playing Sunday morning?
Yeah, we're going to be in Chris's neck of the woods. We're going to be at Wantaw Park. So Wantaw Park on Sunday, as you said, I believe the weather calls for like a 45-degree cloudy morning. So it's going to be chilly out there with the brew crew
outside. Let's be honest, it's gonna suck to play softball.
Yeah, but don't worry, the brew crew will be warmed up. We've been waiting. We're ready to go. You know, get the hands warm, hand warmers ready, and we'll be out there swinging.
Definitely bring the hand warmers. I can tell you, and Justin will appreciate this as a delivery person, that always under your gloves have hand warmers on. So that might be the day Sunday to bring back the hand warmers, as we are getting a polar vortex to shift here in the New York area between Sunday and into Tuesday. So unfortunately, that is the case. 1 week we're in shorts, the next minute we're in the winter coats, but that's the season for the team. Also, want to make sure I give a huge happy birthday to Brendan Fitzpatrick, Fitzy, because today is Fitzy's birthday, so I want to make sure I acknowledge him, give him a huge shout out, of course, to the legendary Plainview JFK SUNY Cortland Dragon star. Of course, he's now an assistant coach for the team, and cannot thank enough Fitzy for his support. Obviously, it was a very, very fun interview we did with him, catching up, talking all things related here to what he's working on with the Red Dragons, the men's basketball team, and what a season that they had, and of course, everything that he's doing. So I want to give him a very, very huge happy birthday, and many, many more. Also, a happy birthday to my brother Sean, who's definitely not listening to this because he's he's a square. He's got babies, and he's probably in bed right now. So he's probably in bed somewhere. But want to wish him a happy birthday, and also want to plug Anthony Finkel here in DPH Property Maintenance Service before I get to Rob Maraska. And certainly, again, if you need professionals when it comes to DPH Property Maintenance Service and services here, if you're a landlord, if you're a busy professional, a parent, or a senior, we handle your trash. We keep your curbside clean. We save you time and energy. And, of course, if you need a professional at DPH Property Maintenance Service, we have it at the Trash Dini for weekly service plans, which start at $40. You can call DPH Property Maintenance Service at 347-228-2625 or sign up at dph.nyc. That is DPH Property Maintenance Service at 347-228-2625, or sign up at dph.nyc. And, of course, when you call or go to dph.nyc, use the promo code Sportswire and get your first week free. That's your promo code Sportswire and get your first week free so you know what you need to do. And, of course, again, you can catch us on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Northeast streaming services on Roku. You can catch us tomorrow night, 8 p.m. on Linda and Mac McGrath's channel. I know we also play the Talking Rivals on there as well. And, of course, you can always catch us on sportnarium.com/player, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. And I want to shift now to baseball because we've got Rob Maraska, our longest tenured analyst, who's jumped in here. In fact, he's sorry about the comment there, Mr. Maraska, that John Gonzalez had. We wanted to be diplomatic and not read that comment off, but we know it's baseball time. I've got about 20 minutes for some baseball here for sure. And we have somebody that's commented in here, and we're not even going to repeat their comments because we're a family show, and they've probably tried to hijack the stream. But Mr. Maraska, how you doing there, my friend? You got a lot of talk here about those New York Mets.
Could you hear me? I don't want to blow anybody's hearing aids out.
Well, John Gonzalez might be older than you even, Mr. Maraska, so that's probably why he said that. So a little touche there at John Gonzalez. But obviously a lot to talk about here with those Mets and much, much more. And what's on your mind?
I want to start talking about cats. We know in 1969, a black cat crossed the Cubs dugout, and we know what happened then. That wasn't good for the Cubs. The Mets win the division, the Mets win the pennant, and the Mets win the World Series. Well, Monday, when Mets prospect Josh Walker arrived to spring training, he got out of his car and he heard meowing, and he didn't know where it was coming from. So he popped up his hood, and what did he see? A kitten was stuck under his engine.
You do realize, Mr. Maraska, like almost all of us on the stream were like, "What's the catch here?" So give us the catch. I mean, you got to have something here about backside of it because
you got
guys here that are in their 20s, Mr. Maraska, looking at you like 1969 Mets memories. They're not going to connect with it. So fill us in here.
Here's the catch.
All right,
he didn't know what to do, and the teammates said, listen, this is a good omen because they knew what happened in 1969, and they're younger than all you guys.
Right,
so he took the cat to the vet. He adopted the cat, and now they feel like that's going to be good luck for the 2022 Mets.
Well, let's certainly hope. I mean, the Mets definitely need some luck here, and obviously, the news here has been most notably, and I'll open this up for everybody else here, including you, Mr. Maraska, is that Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom have took the mound here this week in spring training. I'll go with my Mets guys and work my way around with Chris. I mean, Justin, give me your thoughts on Scherzer and deGrom on the mound here, and give me your opinions.
As advertised. I mean, I didn't get to see much of Scherzer because that one wasn't televised.
Yep.
But I was actually surprised, but obviously he's been building his arm up all winter and early spring because he threw 5 innings and 72 pitches in his first spring start. So Max Scherzer is raring and ready to go. As for Jacob deGrom, that's a little different. That game was on SNY, and I did watch that. And Jake's back. I mean, first time we see him in 8 months, and he strikes out the side, strikes out 5 of 6 hitters. I don't care who the Astros had. It's what we've come accustomed to with Jacob deGrom. So, but for Jake, it's good to see him healthy because that was the concern. We had a historic first half last year, and missed the entire second half. So it's just good to see him healthy. As for Max Scherzer, I mean, you see exactly why he's a first ballot lock to go into the Hall of Fame. He's just a tremendous pitcher.
Yeah, and tune
into your TVs on Sunday because the game's on Pix 11. Jake is starting with the intentions of pitching 3 innings, and Max Scherzer's coming in relief with the intentions on finishing the ball game.
It's almost like Johnson and Schilling 2001, 2002 all over again. That's what it sounds like to me. And certainly that's got a lot of Met fans, like, of course, some of us here on the stream, very, very excited. And those who are watching, listening, I mean, Bill, you're nodding your heads. I mean, Scherzer and DeGrom, obviously it's going to be pay-per-view like quality, and give me your thoughts on them taking the mound here this week for our Mets.
Yeah, I mean, like just said, they were both as advertised. DeGrom certainly didn't seem to be showing any ill effects from his arm issues last year. Even Scherzer, he had some dead arm down the stretch. He certainly didn't seem to be, too hampered by that. I mean, not too many guys go 5 innings in their first spring start. I think the big thing is with Scherzer being able to eat so many innings early in the year is you can sort of, bring DeGrom along a little more slowly if you need to, if you need a little more time to ramp up, because you have Scherzer that is going to be ready to give you, 7 innings his first start of the season. So if DeGrom can only go, 5 or 6 opening day, you're
That's
not
what it sounds like.
but you're not going to burn the bullpen after that happens, because you have Scherzer can eat innings for you. Plus the roster expanded to 28 for the first month of the season. So I think they're going to complement each other well. Certainly, if I'm looking at, game 7 in a playoff series where you've got one of them starting, the other one waiting in the bullpen, that would scare me as an opposing player for sure. So, we might get a preview of that someday. We'll see.
If I'm the opponent, I'd pack my bags at that
point. All right, well, certainly we'll see if the opponents do that. And the brute force, you got to be excited as much as anybody. I've seen all your Instagram stories. I'm trying to keep up with how many Instagram stories we had this week here. But obviously, Scherzer and DeGrom, I know we have Bobby Lewis. That'll sort of be like our Scherzer and DeGrom for our brew crew. But in the meantime, while we love Bobby Lewis, give me your thoughts on Scherzer and DeGrom, to say the least.
Yeah, I got to watch both of them start. Max Scherzer's start was actually live streamed online, and I was watching. And listen, he was tremendous in 5 innings. He let up 1 run in the first inning, but Jazz Chisholm started off that game and bunted a single. He stole second base, and then on a few ground outs and a weak single, they scored. And that was basically all the Marlins did with almost their entire starting lineup going against Max Scherzer. They didn't do anything besides that little bunt and a stolen base and 1 hit. So he was incredible. His slider looked really good. His fastball was right around 93 miles an hour. So a lot of great signs from Scherzer. And like you said, like in 5 innings for his first start in the spring training was unbelievable. So it was cool to see Max in that blue and orange. I think we've been waiting to see that. I'm excited to see that too real soon. But Jacob DeGrom, let me just stop calling him DeGrom, because his name should be DeGoat. Okay, because he is the best pitcher in Major League Baseball, and it's not even close at this point. I don't even think Garrett Cole's even in range of that anymore. He is just so good, and you watch him. And listen, a few weeks ago, me and Justin Gianelli came on this show, and we're looking at each other and wondering, no one said much about Jacob DeGrom. Is this bad? Weeks later, we watched him pitch and looked like he never left. The way that he was hitting his spots with his fastball, his slider was just ridiculously good. His back foot slider to lefties, his slider on the outside corner to righties. It was just pinpoint accurate. And he was just, again, unbelievable.
How about that curveball he flipped to start the second inning?
Oh, my God, that too.
And apparently, Max Scherzer in the dugout challenged him to throw the first pitch curveball. And he threw like 3 curveballs all last year. Flips it over for a strike.
Oh, my God, and he dotted it, too. It was like a perfect. Yeah. So, if you give Jacob DeGrom another pitch that he could really locate, oh, my God. So he's been absolutely unbelievable. It's great to see him on the mound. So overall, that's been good, but I got to mention this because this is really concerning. If anybody heard how Carlos Carrasco did in his first outing in a minor league game, ladies and gentlemen, he pitched 3 1/3 innings, let up 5 runs, let up 2 homers, and was absolutely crushed by minor leaguers. So this is becoming very concerning if I'm a Mets fan looking at Carlos Carrasco, who was a very solid pitcher. But now we really got to be concerned. This is a guy we think is going to be in the rotation, and he's really got some proving to do the next few starts in spring training, because there are other candidates. And I know that, Carrasco was traded for. He's got the contract. But ultimately, this is not a team that's waiting to win. This is a win-now team. And if Carrasco can't get his act together, that's going to be a problem. And I could see him not even making that starting rotation.
Carrasco just seems like it will.
But you know what? I think Carrasco will make the opening day rotation, just because I think Walker is about a week or 2 behind, because he had knee surgery in January. So, it looks like for the first turn or two, we're going to miss Taijuan Walker. But also to Carlos Carrasco, if he's your fifth starter and Taijuan Walker gets back, I think he wore down because he hadn't pitched a lot in the last few years. So we saw that great first half from Taijuan Walker. If Taijuan Walker is anything like the first half Taijuan Walker last year, Carlos Carrasco at the number 5 spot is the least of your concerns. And guess what? David Peterson could get a spot start. Tyler McGill could get a spot start. You know, the Mets are going to have options to replace him if it doesn't work out, and they're not going to be too worried about it because as long as DeGrom, Scherzer, and Chris Bassett are anchoring the rotation, the Met rotation's in good shape.
Yeah, and that's what I'll say that I mentioned last week is something that Mets fans haven't really had, and that's the idea that we have starting pitching depth. Now we don't have to worry. You know, we don't have to think about guys, like I said last week, like Chris Flexen making starts for us a few years ago.
Careful what you wish for. Next thing you know, half of them are on the IL.
Well, again, we'll get to, Rob Maraska, hopefully with that black cat will help us. But ultimately, listen, Tyler McGill looked good. I know David Peterson didn't look great, but he's pitching again, I believe, tomorrow. So we'll see how he looks. And then, listen, I saw a guy like Trevor Williams, who we traded for last year, look good in his first outing. So that's another guy who could potentially start games for you.
Don't forget though, when you start the first month of the season, just because of rainouts and now you have the extended roster, it doesn't put as much pressure on you to have a hard, locked-in 5-man rotation. We see this all the time. Teams will go 6 guys, or they'll work their way around depending on schedules. Because again, listen. The weather in April is always inconsistent. So you do have a little bit of breathing room here. And Ron Laird definitely agrees with the brute force here. And I'll get back to the Mets in a second. But because Chris obviously is our Yankees expert, I want to at least work in a Yankees thoughts, especially for the Tobacco Road Sports Radio audience here. And Chris, I'm listening to talk radio throughout the weekend, and I'm listening to people call up about the Yankees. And I know you've been fielding this on the Talking Rivals show. And God bless the Pinstripe Chronicles, guys. I heard it when it came to Carlos Correa and him going to the Minnesota Twins, and essentially it was a 1-year deal. Essentially it was 3 years, but it was really an opt-out after every other year. I mean, what do you make of the Yankees in terms of how their offseason's gone?
Well, you know what? Obviously, before it started, everybody thought, all right, we're going to get one of these top shortstops because that's what we needed. But now with all this talk about Anthony Volpe coming up, probably, I mean, he's definitely going to be the starter next year, without a doubt. But from what they're saying, too, he might even be up this year by the end of the year. And they have 2 other shortstops that are up in their top 10 prospects. So they weren't going to sign any of these shortstops to any long-term deals, right? So it didn't make any sense. I thought the trade that they made, I personally thought it's a big improvement because offensively you brought in Donaldson. That's a huge improvement over.
I think the Donaldson move is still a solid move. I think at the end of the day, his last 2 full seasons, if you put the numbers in between, 32 and about 85. I mean, I'll take 30 home runs in my lineup.
Much better than Gio's offensive.
Absolutely.
And probably a little better glove. It seems like the last couple of years, Donaldson's kind of gotten rid of the calf issues that he had previously. But, and a question for you, I mean, you talk about the shortstop prospects, but wouldn't that bother you more that they didn't sign Correa, looking at what he got in Minnesota? It's basically a 1-year, $35 million deal.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think something's up there because why wouldn't we offer him that, right? It makes no sense. I don't understand. Either they didn't want to even bring him in on a 1-year deal, they didn't want to deal with it. Because, okay, if you bring him, let's say if they matched that offer from Minnesota, it was a 3-year deal, or was it a 4-year deal, right? With an opt-out after
no. 3. Correa's deal was 3 for 102, I think.
Okay, so a 3-year deal with an opt-out after each one.
Yep.
So what if he comes here and he decides, I'm not going to opt out, and he stays at shortstop? Now you're stopping Volpe from coming up, and you still got Torres at second. You got Donaldson at third. So maybe they didn't want to do that. Maybe they said, all right, we'll give you a 1-year, $35 million deal or whatever the number would be. But I don't know. It definitely seems strange, but I think they're trying to build around this young nucleus that's ready to come up in another year or two.
Yeah.
They're trying to replicate what they did in the early to mid to late 90s, bringing up, the young players and build around them. Is it going to work? I have no idea. Obviously, I can't tell you, sure. Volpe, he looks great in spring training, getting all these reports. He's going to be a star and all this kind of stuff, but you just don't know. But
I think your frustration level should be more with the fact that it seems like they didn't address any pitching.
Absolutely. I agree. And
I mean,
I wanted to get another starter.
Let me get in. I got to get in here, Rob Marassa, because I've only got X amount of time here on the stream, and I appreciate all the stuff here. But I want to get Rob Marassa in here very quickly because the Mets still have a decision to make on Michael Conforto, and I know Rob Marasca's chomping at the bit here to talk about that. So what do the Mets do here with Michael Conforto, Rob Marassa?
I don't think the Mets are going to sign Conforto. I mean, it's a logjam in the outfield. I think he's going to have to go elsewhere. Listen, now that, we found out how much money he turned down before last season, $100 million. That's $100 million mistake. I mean, turning that down. And then the qualifying offer was $18.4 million. He's not going to get this anywhere else. Maybe he's going to be playing for the Baltimore Orioles. Who knows?
Yeah, it kind of rings almost similar to the Andrew Jones situation all those years ago, and he kind of waited out, and his career was never the same. And very quickly, Anthony, before I get back to Mets talk, Anthony J. Finkel, this was for you, Brad. Knicks first heat equals game of the night. Just watch the highlights. Just for you, Brad. I mean, so we'll get back to the Mets here in a second, but I'm surprised, Anthony. I guess you didn't watch St. Peter's because you were at SmackDown. So,
yeah.
St. Peter's, to be fair, I would have to say St. Peter's and Purdue is probably one of the biggest upsets in recent memory, and certainly for this year. So, I mean, to be fair, there, Big Fink. I mean, you did miss that one, but. Anybody else here ever thought on Michael Conforto? Then I want to get to one other sort of baseball-related topic here with Rob.
Yeah, when it comes to Conforto, it's been so quiet on his market. It's like you can't even tell who's involved in the Conforto sweepstakes. I mean, the article also said that they were willing to pay upwards of $120 million. So he turns that down last spring. He turned down the qualifying offer, and now he has to sit out until July 16th for a team to sign him and not owe the Mets a draft pick. So he would end up losing. So and I think that's what's scaring teams off from signing him, knowing at this point he's getting less than that qualifying offer. He's getting less than $18.4 million. He'd be lucky to get $10 million at this point on a 1-year deal. And teams don't want to give up a draft pick for a guy that's only going to likely be there for 1 year. So
he wants a prove me deal. That's what he wants. He wants a prove me
right,
deal.
but teams don't want to give up a draft pick to just a guy who's going to be there for 1 year. So it makes his market increasingly smaller. And I wouldn't say never with the Mets, but I say not at all likely.
Listen, I mean,
I meant 0.0001.
And that's Rob Marasca's point. It could be the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, for Billy and Brad, Michael Conforto, any thoughts on you guys high on him coming back or him playing somewhere else? What do you guys think?
I don't think he comes back. I don't really see where he fits in. I don't think they're going to put Kana on the bench, and you're not going to bring Conforto back to be a fourth outfielder. Plus, I think they want to use the outfield to get, Smith, McNeil, and Davis some at-bats some days. So it's unlikely. I understand turning down the contract offer at the beginning of the year because if he had a good year, he was going to make way more than $120 million in the open market. He was probably looking at, 150, 160, somewhere in the range of what, Javier Baez got, although probably spread out over more years. But I think not accepting the qualifying offer after the season he had was a huge mistake. You're going into the offseason with this draft compensation attached to you, and you have so many good hitters that were hitting the market this year. So many good offensive players that were hitting the market. Even at shortstop, you had Seager, Simeon, Baez,
Bryant, obviously.
Bryant, Castellanos, what's his name? Like Schwarber. Yeah, you had so many hitters hitting the market.
Even Cruz out there. Nelson Cruz was out there in the market.
Yep. There were so many. At some point, they should have said, you know what? We get the draft pick compensation coming out of a horrible year with a whole ton of potential free agent outfielders, and everyone knew this lockout was coming. This was not a secret. Everyone knew for years there was going to be a lockout. So you knew there was going to be some sort of condensed offseason. I really think that the smarter play by him and his agent would have been take the qualifying offer, because now it's off the table for the rest of your career. You cannot receive it twice in your career. And,
it's also gone. Like, this is it. He's the last player ever with the qualifying offer attached to him.
So I think that I think that he would have been better off to taking the qualifying offer. I mean, selfishly, I wanted to take because I wanted him to stay with the Mets, but also I think just in general, I think he would take the qualifying offer and had a better market next offseason when he went back to free agency.
I mean, let's see if anybody knows this answer though. Has a Boris client ever accepted the qualifying offer?
Well, how many players have accepted the qualifying offer to begin with? Only a
couple. It's only a handful. It's only a handful. I mean, I know Marcus Stroman played on it this year.
I don't think he's a Boris guy though.
No, he's not. He's not.
Who else has accepted it? I guess would be the first question.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
I don't think any of them have. Syndergaard didn't take the qualifying offer. He might be a Boris guy, but he got a better offer. I don't think so.
And John Gonzalez has chimed in here. Let me get his comment before I get to Brad and move on here very quickly. He says, Conforto is down to the Miami Marlins and the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, listen, Rob Maraska said the Baltimore Orioles, so you could kind of throw them in there as the Three Musketeers. I mean, for you, Brad.
I just saw here, it seems like Tampa could be in play, but nobody's made any serious.
Well, Tampa would make sense. Get him on again the prove me deal. They've got obviously draft picks to spare. He could kind of fit in their lineup. But I could certainly see that kind of thing. Maybe they get lucky. They always seem to kind of strike lightning in a bottle.
What about San Francisco to replace Chris Bryant?
Brendan Bell last year.
I gotta move on very quickly and get Brad's thought because I'm running soon here on this stream. So. Brad, Michael Conforto, before I move on to one other sort of baseball-related topic with Rob Maraska.
Yeah, well, my first comment would be, John Gonzalez, who's your source on that comment with the Diamondbacks and Marlins? Because that's what I said last week. So I don't know if it's you. I don't know if it's you listening to me. Maybe you're listening to me finally, or you're actually getting your comments because you're Adam Schefter of the show. So we got to confirm that credibility on that.
And he's also saying Matt Harvey is drawing some interest.
Yes, that's true. I saw that. I did see that like that, and that's. Listen, I'm not even going to comment on that.
That's what I'm saying. Plead the fifth.
No comment. But with Michael Conforto, listen, I'm going to be honest. As a Mets fan, and I've talked to Mets fans, there's a lot of Mets fans that want Conforto back. And listen, and again, he has to obviously lower that asking price. Like Justin said, he's not going to get those numbers that he was offered. He already lost out. And again, another Scott Boras client that's doing the wrong thing right now. I know there's a lot that have had success with Scott Boras, but this is not a good example of it. So ultimately, Conforto, listen, do I still want him as a New York Met? Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. Let's see how Starling Marte develops here because, we've already heard rumors about his injury here in spring training. He's not even swinging yet. I'm assuming that that's going to change, but let's see what happens. That these older players, they could have injuries. So maybe Conforto is a guy that if he lowers his price, maybe he'll come back for a year. But ultimately, when it comes to the Mets and whether they need him or not, I totally agree with Billy McInerney. You got to make sure that you still have a spot for a Dom Smith, a J.D. Davis, even Jeff McNeil at times in the outfield. These guys are looking really good in spring training. And also, listen, Mark Canha's looked pretty solid in spring training. And, I think that his bat needs to be in the lineup as well. So there's a lot of spots right now that we got to find for these players. And if we put Conforto in there, that takes a spot away. and that'll make it more complex. But listen, these are good problems to have if you're a good team. So
listen, and the Mets have some depth. I mean, it's not the greatest lineup in the world, but again, they have time certainly. And listen, I could certainly see why he would not come back as a New York Met based on some of those things and even kind of everything that happened there. But Rob Moroska, I want to get your thoughts real quick, and I want to get everybody's thoughts here very quickly on it before I do move on. And obviously, the news here that New York City Mayor Eric Adams has made a carve out for entertainers / athletes, and obviously that impacts our players, whether it's our New York Yankees, New York Mets, and even Brooklyn Nets like Kyrie Irving, and that if they did not get the COVID-19 vaccine of any form, that they are now able to play their home games here in the city of New York. And certainly that is going to impact a number of Mets and Yankees. And your thoughts here, Rob Moroska?
Well, and
Rob Moroska, we've lost you there. Are you there? We're, I guess, having technical difficulties here with Rob Moroska, our longest tenured analyst. I mean, that does happen here. I mean, I'll move on and I'll get back to Rob Moroska here, and I'll get a few thoughts very quickly from the guys, and we can talk about it in the overtime segment here. But what does everybody think now of the fact that our favorite players now will be able to play their home games in the city of New York if they did not get the COVID-19 vaccine?
All right, I guess I'll take the starter here. I guess I'll take the start. Look, I mean, it's good that Kyrie Irving and whoever unvaccinated on the Mets and Yankees are able to play. But I don't know. I still have a hard time getting excited over this as much as I have been clamoring to get Kyrie back on the court. I think the way Mayor Eric Adams went about it yesterday was a complete and utter clown show. I mean, let's just call it what it is. He should have just dropped the mandate entirely so that the workers that were fired because they chose not to receive the vaccine, it leaves a lot to be desired. Let's put it this way. And and I'm certainly somebody who is pro-vaccine, but I'm definitely anti some of these stupid mandates.
I think most people who are pro COVID-19 vaccine look at this kind of whole carve out here, and it disappoints people. Rob Moroska, we have been joined by you again. Your thoughts on now the fact that New York City Mayor Eric Adams has given a carve out for athletes to be able to play their home games, and I'm hearing a whole bunch of stuff in the background there, Rob Moroska. So if you want to tune that down, if you can, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, that's that Clove Road stuff, and I'm having spectrum problems in this building. But anyway,
all right. Well, I'll keep it quick with you then, and use that, and then closing thoughts from you. Because if you're having technical difficulties, I don't want to keep you much longer. But give me your thoughts on this new adjustment that our favorite Mets and Yankees alike. Oh, we lost him again. Poor Rob Moroska. I'm gonna have to move on from you, Rob. We'll come back with you, but let me get some of the other guys here because I've only got a certain amount of time here. So. For everybody else here, and John Gonzalez agrees with Justin. I'll put that up there. For Brad and Billy and Chris, I'll get to Billy and Chris first, then I'll get to Brad because Brad's a former athlete and coach. For you guys, I mean, give me your thoughts on this whole situation here.
Yeah, go ahead, Billy.
Yeah, I mean, right now, certainly transmission numbers are low enough that I think you can probably take the shot. I mean, you take the chance and, But I do think, like Justin said, it's a little bit ridiculous to carve out an exception for, athletes and such when, everyday people can't. There's a few things I'm curious about. If case numbers start to go back up again, do you reinstitute this mandate? I think you kind of have to if case numbers go back up, where then, so I don't know if you're totally out of the woods if you're an athlete yet. I'm also curious because I remember one of the things Kyrie Irving was talking about was, wanting to show support people who have lost their jobs because of COVID mandates. So now to accept this exemption that was given to him, that seems a little bit hypocritical to me. If your whole point of doing this was I want to, I don't think it's right that people are losing their jobs for it, and then you turn around and take it, especially carved out mandate exception for you. I don't love that, but in general, I mean, numbers are low enough right now. I'm looking at it now over the last 28 days. It's pretty much stayed. The percent positives is pretty much stayed level. Case numbers are slightly increasing, but not significantly. I think at least for now, it's probably okay to do it. Again, I mean, so much has changed over the last 2 years that I don't know if you can say anything's going to be a permanent policy.
Right, right.
They say if you're a player, especially if you're a player, coming up on free agency where you might lose service time if you're not able to play, you might, strongly consider getting vaccinated. You haven't yet, because otherwise you might be delayed from free agency another year. So I mean, following hockey, obviously there's one player in the league that's not vaccinated.
I was going to say the NHL of all the 4 sports really did the best job.
Shocks me, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, one player in the NHL is not vaccinated.
And I'll read a comment here from Aunt Laura, obviously, and she says, "I'm pro-vaccine, but my perspective is if my taxes aren't paying your salary, it is what it is. But clearly vaccines work, or we would not even be having this conversation." Yeah, I think that a lot of people feel that way, and certainly, again, it's a very delicate, slippery slope because there are a lot of people out there that went out and got the COVID vaccine, and there were people that made a decision not to get it for whatever reasons, and they wound up losing their job. And I think that's kind of where people feel upset and disappointed about it. And putting my political cap on, what was, I think, interesting also was many of the unions that had supported Eric Adams in his most recent election were actually upset as well. So I think it shows you that a lot of people were upset at this decision from, all backgrounds. So I could certainly sympathize with anybody it is. And I think by and large, the public is pro-vaccine because especially in New York, I think we have 78% or 77% of people that have been fully vaccinated. Something like, I think 36% in New York State have been boosted as well. So clearly people in New York paid attention to those things. And Rob Maraska here has a comment, and I appreciate that. The power keeps going on and off in the building. Yeah, the building that he's in, unfortunately, does have some of those issues. So I can certainly sympathize with that. So he apologizes. I want everybody also to follow Rob Maraska here also on Twitter at @rmaraska. Also give him a like on Facebook with his group. So certainly we do sympathize with that. And his building is known to have some of those things because, well, he lives down the street from me. So I could certainly appreciate that. So we want to make sure we shout out Rob Maraska, and we certainly apologize for those who were looking forward to hearing from him because he does have his supporters like Joe Dell and Aunt Laura Delamast, all those other people as well. So I want to make sure that we recognize that. And please give everybody a follow for Rob Maraska as well. And he says he'll talk to you guys next week, and that's very fine. Rob, we can keep you on, or we're just going to boot you off the stream so you can do that from there. But Chris, give me your thoughts on this whole idea before I get to Brad's talk, because that's who I'm most excited to hear from on this.
Yeah, you know what? It didn't make sense to me with the mandate where they weren't letting, say, Kyrie play, but they were letting unvaccinated players play from other teams coming in. So it didn't make any sense. And then they had him on, he was sitting courtside during the Nets game, and he wasn't able to play the game. So that part none of this made sense. And like you said, it's political, and I feel bad for the people that did lose their jobs because of their decision not to get the shot. I'm vaxxed, so I'm kind of torn in the middle too. I definitely respect people's decisions not to get it. Whatever way you want to get, whatever you want to do in life, do it. I felt horrible for those people, and I still do, and now it just shows you the power of money, basically, right? Between the Yankees, the Mets, and the Nets. Finally, the mayors or whoever had to make that decision.
Well, it was funny on that. And again, I hate to get political, but one of our buddies is obviously Steve Saperstein, former Democratic candidate who in part lost the election for the city council because of this stupid policy, and there was a huge revolt in the Orthodox Jewish and in the Russian communities. For those who aren't follow or have not followed, they're the people who've gotten the least of the COVID shots, probably in the country, and certainly in the city of New York, and they revolted against this.
But they hold a lot of power in the city.
And they basically selected the other candidate over Mr. Saperstein. He had actually sent me something that there was a booster to this, and that was Mr. Steve Cohen, who had sent a whole bunch of money to Mr. Adams, and certainly that could have been in part.
And Mr. Levine from the Yankees
has
a lot of power
and that's what it comes down to. And then there was somebody else who was the Speaker of the City Council, Corey Johnson at the time, who was also lobbying Mr. Adams to change the policy. So I mean, Ty, fill in the blanks. That's all you need to know.
What's the old saying? Money talks and something walks.
BS walks, and that's what it comes down to here in New York. I mean, Brad, I'm curious because you are a coach currently. You just played. You had a distinguished career at St. Joseph's, Long Island. We have many friends on that team. We speak with many coaches and such, and they went out and got the COVID vaccine. They went out and got the COVID shot and the boosters and everything else there. And what do you feel about this? I mean, what's your thoughts? I mean, because again, I could see where it upsets people, even those who are vaccinated and that went out there and got the work, or even anybody else that's looking at it like, well, why now? And these other people that got laid off and aren't getting their jobs back. I mean, I know it's such a slippery slope, but I think people around the country, especially on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, probably want to hear what a former athlete and a coach like the Brute Force Brad Weiss has to say on it.
Yeah, well, let me just get started because all three, Chris, Justin, and Billy, all made great points throughout. And, I'll start, obviously, listen, the big topic in the sports world has been Kyrie Irving with this, and obviously he'll get to play. And actually, I will most likely be at the game on Sunday in his first game at Barclays Center. So I'm excited to see him as well as that game. But ultimately, listen, I'm going to call myself what I am, and I'm a fair-minded individual. And listen, I love sports. I love entertainment. But the fact that they lifted this mandate just for that and not for everybody really just ticks me off. And I think that's the bigger issue here, because I think, listen, and just like, all of us, I'm pro-vax. I got my booster, and that's for the safety of my kids and all the kids and all the parents that I work with. Listen, I'm around kids all the time. So for me, it was about my family. It was about the kids and everybody that I work with just being safe and doing the right thing for them. But ultimately, like I said, fairness is important. As a player, as a coach, you do what's best for those around you. And when you make decisions, you think about it in a large context. And like Justin said to begin this, I was watching some of Mayor Adams' conference at Citi Field. It was pretty embarrassing. I really did not like the way that he came across. I really did not like the way he looked as a leader. And ultimately, listen, this is not a good look. And it's not only from people who are anti-vax, but also got people who are vaccinated, who are saying to themselves, well, they're going to lift this mandate for athletes and for entertainers, but not for, other workers, for example, fire department workers and police officers and those people who protect us every single day. How is that possible? And then listen, again, I'm biased.
Those same people that we called heroes just 18 months ago before there was a vaccine.
And I'm biased. I'm a sports athlete. I'm a sports coach. But that doesn't distract me from the bigger picture, which is fairness for everyone. Because I respect those people just as much as I respect the athletes and the players and the coaches that I work alongside and with. And listen, that's what I do for a living. But ultimately, I understand that there are other people that did not choose to do that for a living that cannot, go and say that and do the same thing that Kyrie Irving's now doing. Which again, it was ridiculous in its own right that he was sitting courtside at a game and couldn't play. So, I just think the mandate itself should have just been lifted. I think Billy's 100% right. If it needs to be put back in place because cases are up and we're in a little bit of a different state, then we could consider it. But right now, if you're going to lift it for players and for entertainers, lift it for everyone. I think that's fair enough.
And I think that's what a lot of people feel. And that's why, again, a number of unions that, again, were supporters of Mr. Adams, like the teachers union, like a number of other unions that were upset about this. And I think that's the really slippery slope here. But I think what it comes down to, again, is that sports fans, we're loud. We had our voices heard. And I think that's why at the end of the day, this is why it's happening. And listen, the Nets are in a spot that, listen, they have a shot. If Kyrie's in the lineup here every day, they could win a championship.
They're a team that people don't want to face now because
we've
seen the way Kyrie Irving has played. Despite the loss to a John Morantless Grizzlies, I mean, Kyrie Irving dropped 43 points on his birthday. I mean, he's just an incredible player.
No question about it. No question about that. Again, and certainly there's a lot here to talk about. We've got about 10 or so minutes on the stream, and I'll finish up with an overtime. We'll open up another stream, and maybe we'll get some college basketball thoughts. And I do want to update everybody here on a few scores of note. I have here UNC and UCLA right now are in action, and it's 56-51 UCLA with just about 9 minutes or so left. And the game that's also intrigued me most right now is Iowa State, number 11 seed against number 10 seed Miami, and it's 32-29 the U right now at halftime. Also, Kansas was able to get by Providence 66-61, and of course, the upset heard around the world. Maybe the biggest upset, I guess, Giants-Patriots for our Giants fans here like Billy. I'm thinking it's more along the lines of Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. That's always my kind of upset there. And then as a nod to the late, great Scott Hall, maybe the 1-2-3 kid over Scott Hall back on Monday Night Raw in 1993. And certainly that was St. Peter's, the Peacocks, 67-64 over the Purdue Boilermakers. And I want to give a shout out to Mark Mitchell, of course, the women's head coach to the team, and always Coach Mitchell has been a friend to us and obviously a friend to us here, and also done a phenomenal job in his own right. That is a program at St. Peter's, and I want to acknowledge Shaheen Holloway and also Coach Mitchell, because that was a program about 4 or 5 years ago, both the men's and women's teams, that they maybe won combined like in a season, like 7 games. So the fact that we're even talking about the men's program 1 win away from the Final Four from the MAC conference is pretty historic. So I definitely want to acknowledge them. And of course, Coach Mitchell, who took the Peacocks, the women's team, to the women's championship game on the MAC side. And John Gonzalez says, I've got UCLA over North Carolina. Yeah, hang out for us, John, on the overtime segment. I have some thoughts on college basketball here, but I want to get everybody's closing thoughts in here since we've got about 9 or so minutes on the stream. And I want to start with Chris here first. And Chris, I know we've got a Talking Rivals website. I'd like for you to share anything Liftoff Jets. Really, we're going to play the show tomorrow as well. So anything we need to know there. Also, social media plug, and the floor is yours. And I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Great show as always. Talking Rivals will be a little late this week. I think it'll be on Tuesday instead of Monday.
Okay.
I'm going to be up in New Paltz with my daughter. We're checking out New Paltz actually.
Okay.
College.
Good school.
So
yeah, very good school. Very good school.
I heard very good art program. That's what she's going for. So
yeah,
looking forward to it. So we're gonna probably start a little preview this week, probably either National League, American League, with the season starting in a couple of weeks. So we're gonna start that on Talking Rivals, and we have the website. We're gonna start adding more stuff, but it's talkingrivals.com. So if anybody wants to check it out.
Very cool.
It's the links basically just.
Yes, I've seen it. It's a phenomenal website.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a great
Patrick
website.
set it up. He's doing a great job. With the Liftoff, we're gonna keep previewing the draft. We're gonna go into the defensive side of the ball. We finished the offense this week, so we're gonna start probably with the defensive line, the edge, and the interior. So that's with Sharman Phillip. Liftoff Jets. We'll probably do that Wednesday. And that's about it. You know, you can hit me up on Twitter, CP7NY. I'm always up for a chat or debate, whatever. Liftoff Jets for the show, and Talking Rivals for that show as well on Twitter.
I'm looking forward to all that in here, and I'm looking at the Talking Rivals website, and it's a weekly podcast about the best bleeping rivalry in all of baseball, from the Green Monster to the Short Porch. We have all your Red Sox and Yankees news covered, and of course, it's got links here to Twitter, YouTube. I believe we have Anchor, Spotify. We have also Apple, and we have NESSP.info. So I appreciate all those links there that are seen, so everybody can go out there and go to talkingrivals.com and listen to all the links you can find from the guys, and of course, sportnarium.com player. We play it throughout the week. I would say put our link on there, but I never know when we're playing it because we just play it. We're not, unfortunately.
We gotta get the logo up there too.
You know what? Unfortunately, we're not a podcast. I see, so I wouldn't. I hate recommending people till unless I definitely.
But at least get the link up there, so this way, boom, it'll go right to the player and whatever you got going on. There's always a good show on Sportzwire.
Yeah, you know what? We try to play. We play as everybody. I like to give everybody a shot. Yeah. Justin, I want to give you the floor, my friend. I want to give you some closing thoughts, and please plug your social media and anything else baseball banter related.
Yeah, so I didn't get a chance to record this week. I'll probably get one in tomorrow. You can follow me on my personal Twitter at JGNLE12 and at bballbantersm as we are closing in. We're just less than 2 weeks away from opening day. So some team previews will be coming in, and we'll be raring to go for the regular season.
Looking forward to all of that. And of course, Billy, I want to give you the floor. Always love having you here with us, my friend. Happy to talk some hockey finally here. I'm really excited to be talking some hockey much more each week, especially I know Chris is going to get really mad when I say it, the Rangers. And Islanders are playing well, at least. There's at least a faint chance. There was a few callers on the fan overnight that I think were kind of dreaming, and Salicata, at least, was sort of an Islanders fan, was kind of goading it. So maybe we have some faint hope here. But Islanders' schedule doesn't look too good over the next few games, but we'll see. We'll see. That's why I think
crash hard, or we're gonna fizzle out or something.
It's like Bitcoin. It's like my crypto account right now. Right now I'm up, but in a week from now it might be down. So that's just that's like everybody else's account. But Billy, always great to have you, my friend. I want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts? Please plug whatever else you like, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. So you can catch me on Twitter at WMCINE. And I guess for a closing thought, I caught hold of an article. The St. Peter's cheerleading team they couldn't afford to put them on the trip. So NBC streaming service Peacock actually flew them out there. St. Peter's is the Peacocks. So I find it's kind of amusing because obviously, CBS and Turner have the tournament rights, and now NBC is sort of usurping that a little bit and kind of getting their name in it a little bit. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I always find those little kind of petty things that people do to get their network's attention a little amusing. So I guess I thought that was a little amusing.
Didn't the Peacocks come from the Fresh Prince? Wasn't Carlton the Peacock is the mascot? Everybody was a Fresh Prince fan. Well, I think wasn't he a peacock? The only reason I bring that up because Brad will know this. Coach Jamel Gist over at York was actually on his Facebook story posted the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and we had a chat about it. So that's why the peacock mascot came up.
I closely thought I can't say I'm following the tournament closely because I'm not
sure. Understood.
Certainly, St. Peter's. Obviously, anytime you have a team like has a chance to do something like that low of a seed. Getting to the quarterfinals, you start hoping maybe they can, ride a little longer. I'm certainly rooting for them, even though I don't really follow that closely. It's a great story, and I'm hoping they can kind of carry it a little further.
Well, we'll certainly see. I think we're all hoping for some good things, and hope springs eternal, as they always say here. And last but not least, I want to go to the brute force, Brad Weiss, and I've got about 2.5 minutes, Brad, so I'm going to give you the floor, some closing thoughts here, and anything you want to plug, and fire away, my friend.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for another great week of the Sports Report. If you guys have been tuning into my social media, you do know that this past week was me and Tom's 2-year anniversary here on the Sports Report. I posted from our very first show, and it definitely
I heard some of that, and I was like, "Wow, we
really came far." And boy, did I came far! Because if you guys heard some of the clips, it was basically about me not really believing that I was ever going to have a career in this. I never thought I'd be able to talk sports. But 2 years later, we've done many episodes, and this has been a major success. And we've built from being a little podcast on SoundCloud to now being a worldwide radio here and having a great show. So shout out to Tom for doing all the great work. It's been a great relationship me and him have for 2 years doing this show. To have great guys like Chris, Justin, Billy, and amongst others.
Rob Maraska. Gotta mention Rob Maraska. He's been on the show for 3 years before you.
Ernest, amongst others who have made this show.
With us. He's doing, God bless him, in those minor league interviews, which the crypto audience is like through the roof. We post these at any given time, and people just they flock to him.
Yeah, so it's been an absolute ball on this show. One of the best decisions I made was to continue to join the Sports Report. I remember when Tom first reached out to me, and I thought he was nuts, thinking that I was going to be good in broadcasting. And years later,
but Mike McSloy, your old coach, he said that you would be. You'd want to talk. You should call Mike McSloy tonight and tell him that. Not Tom Rice. Mike McSloy said it.
Hey, listen, you know what? I'm just happy that him and you believed in it more than I did. And now I'm here 2 years later, and I'm doing coaching, all these different things. So I'm definitely proud to be a member of this show. But you can follow me and find out all the latest that I'm doing on Instagram at bweiss20, searching Twitter at bradweiss20, and on Facebook, searching Bradley Weiss. So I'm excited. I'm also excited for the Brew Crew season, which starts this Sunday.
We'll get to that.
And you guys can hear more about that on our overtime show. We'll talk some college basketball, and I'll definitely shout out the new guys as well. So looking forward to it. And thank you, Tom, for 2 great years here on the Sports Report.
Absolutely, and I'll have a thought or two on that in the overtime, and I want to thank everybody here, and also we have here Chris I'll mention this in the overtime because I really don't have any time, so I'm going to thank everybody. Thank you. We'll mention Chris's comment here in the overtime, and thank you everybody for listening, and we'll be back with you next week.